Hello, I'm Jim Kerr and welcome to Passion Highway. You can probably see behind me that I am sitting in front of the not so fun side of our camper. In fact, the side of the camper and in the location that pretty much everyone hates. This is the main waste dump for our rig. So this is the guy that dumps both the gray tanks and the black tanks. And if not done correctly, can make a really big mess. So on this episode, we're going to talk about what we did to change this over to a different system that is cleaner and much more efficient. So let's get started, shall we? You can see from our hose here, it looks a little bit different. Inside of this connection here, there's like this lining that's inside, and it's smoother and allows waste to flow down through it a lot more efficiently. And then it has these crush rings. You notice the look, it's a little bit different than the typical Camco type of rhinos or other hoses that are out there. This product is made by LCI and it's called the Waste Master. And if you notice here on the main connector, this is different. So most hoses, when you connect up to the rig, you twist them and lock them. And on ours, we have adopted this connector that is a bayonet type of fitting that positively locks the hose in. This is brand new, so in case you're wondering why I'm not using gloves, we haven't actually used this yet, so it's nice and clean. Only water is ran through it for testing. But if you open this guy up and you can pull this out, you can see the connector is different. This fitting right here connects into those little lugs and it pulls it into an O-ring right here. And this O-ring makes a positive connection. Where those twist on, and I'm sure many of you have had experience with those, where you twist them on and then you bump them and they unlock and it gets to be a real hassle. So they leak and they're just a big pain in the behind, to say the least. So with this guy, this Waste Master product by LCI, that eliminates that. They didn't invent this. This has been used by the waste management industry and fire trucks and just about everybody that has high pressure lines that they don't want to leak. This product has been used, these types of connections, for years and years and years. So to get this on, I didn't have time to do the video while I installed it, but I'll walk you through it here a little bit. And I'll also show you some of the pictures of the install so you get a general idea of what we did. But one thing you're going to notice is right here, this is a clear PVC tube. Now what's nice about this tube is that you can see what's going on inside of the line. Now Camco, they sell a little clear fitting that connects on the outside, twists on, and then you can kind of see what's going on. We wanted something that's going to be a little bit more permanent install that would allow us to see what's going on without having to have any additional adapters on the end. So we installed this clear PVC line. It's a little fogged up now, but when it starts running, you can see what's going on. Then up here, we installed a Valterra positive shutoff valve. Now again, a lot of people install these valves on their campers down on the twist lock side, and then they kind of slide on and off. And the reason you do that is so you don't have leaks here. Because the worst thing in the world to do is to open this up and you have a little bit of a black tank leak or something like that, and then it rushes out in your lap. So with a Valterra valve, it allows you to shut the system off down here completely, and then the tank line going into the main tanks, the main drain system, no matter what's leaking inside of there, it gets stopped right here at this Valterra valve, and then nothing else can get through to the main end. So all we did was we cut the line, we installed the Valterra valve. I'm going to put a link down below in the description so you know exactly which one we bought. It has what's called a hub connector and a spigot connection. So then the spigot side connects to a 90-degree bend, which is similar to what they had originally in OEM. We just bought a new one so we could glue everything together and make sure that we didn't have any leaks. Then we go into PVC plastic extension, but instead of a normal black one, this guy is clear. And then from there, it goes into the connection that we put on, and that allows us to put in these connectors that hold the hose in. And then when it's not in use, it has, similar to the OEM, it has one of these connectors here that you just put into the hole, and that way when you're traveling, if anything were to be in there, it won't spill out. So now I'm following down the hose to the actual drain line here at our campsite. So this is the waste drain in. And what you're going to notice here is that this has those twist-on connections that we removed off of the rig. The unfortunate part of having the LCI Waste Management System, the Waste Master, is that it does not have a lot of accessories like Camco. And we like these because they twist in and they lock. And so instead of buying the normal Waste Master product where we have a big end, and I'll show this up on the screen because it'll make a little bit more sense. So it has a big end and a shutoff valve that's built in, but it uses compression fitting to go down into the waste line. Now the challenge with that guy is that in a permanent site installation like we're at, you really don't want to have that setting there. If somebody bumps it, it would come loose, and it's kind of big and bulky. So instead of buying that kit, we actually bought the parts individually. So we just bought extension hoses instead of the main system line that runs from our coach. And then the extension hoses come with this part, which connects two extension hoses with the same kind of fittings. And then we bought a little adapter here that takes the Waste Master system to these little lugs, and then that will connect into the normal Camco systems. So that allows us to positively lock this system in place without having more of a manual system. Because normally when we're set up at a campground, we leave our gray tanks open, so as we're using the water, they just run out, and we only fill them up when we're ready to drain the black tank. So this allows us to do that, and allows us to do it safely so we don't have to worry about somebody accidentally kicking this over and causing problems. So now I'm at the back of the rig, and kind of similar to the front main drain, we also have this drain right here, which is the drain for our rear restroom. So we have a rear toilet. That toilet and interestingly, the sink in that bathroom drains into the second black tank. So what this guy does is exactly the same as the front. We installed one of these connectors. So let me get a little closer view for you. Okay, it's the same extension line that we use on the front. And we installed the same type of setup. So we have the Waste Master connector. We installed a clear PVC because we want to be able to see again what's coming out of the line so we know when our tanks are clear. And then we installed another one of the Valterra shutoff valves. Exactly the same setup as before, it's just slightly a different exit. And this is pretty close to where the OEM had theirs. So it's reasonably close to this jack stand. But if I can get this out, as you can see, you know, it stays completely clear of the jack stand. So when it's closed or needs to be open, we don't have any issues with hitting this. And then we have another clear plastic tube that lets us see what's going on. But otherwise, it's exactly the same setup. Technically, we wouldn't need one of these since the only thing that comes out of this here is the black tank. But it's still nice to have in case the valve in the black tank starts leaking for some reason. You can always keep this shut. Another advantage that I didn't mention earlier is that these open out if I get it open, straight out. And so they avoid the tire. So if you accidentally left this open and you're driving, it's not going to hit the tire and they're not going to come apart. So you just open it and close it nice and smoothly, and you don't have to worry about tank leaks or having some negative buildup up here that when you open this valve, it all just pours in your lap. So we like having this. It makes a really nice redundancy on the back side of the camper. It also makes it nice when you need to shut things off down here. So if for some reason you're running the drain and it's easier to start the flow from right here. If you have an issue or your tank is leaking, you just hit that real quick and shut it right off. You don't have to worry about going to the main valve to disconnect it. All right, so I moved back in front here, and I figure it would be fun to do a little video so you can see exactly how this waste system works. I've got some gray water built up inside. Now what I did, which is really a pretty neat trick, especially for those of you who might be dry camping. So I have the valve shut, and with the valve shut down here, I actually have the two main gray tanks open. So what happens is as the gray tanks fill up, they fill up and they first fill the main sewage line or the main drain line. Then as those lines fill, it starts filling both tanks evenly. I'm sure many of you have ran into issues where you have your front tank, your gray tank 1 fills up pretty fast and your gray tank 2 doesn't. And the reason is because the gray tank 2 and ours only has the rear shower, which isn't really used all that much. But the gray tank 1 is filled by the front sink in the bathroom, the shower, the washer, and also the kitchen sink. So those get used all the time and they fill up the gray tank 1 pretty quick, while gray tank 2 is almost always empty for us. So by opening the two front valves, so they're open and as if they're draining, we shut the Valterra valve down here so it doesn't fill up the hose itself, you know, this section, in case if we were dry camping, we wouldn't want to open this up and have a bunch of gray water pour in our laps. So the Valterra valve in the front is closed, two gray tanks are open. What happens with water is it equalizes, right? So first it fills up the waste line as far as it can up to the Valterra valve down here. Then after that is full, then it starts filling up the tanks, and then the tanks just get level and they keep filling up. So it's a way to nearly double the capacity of your gray tanks. Now the one thing in our rig that we noticed, however, is that our rear gray tank is set a little bit higher than our front gray tank. So what happens is the front gray tank fills, it'll get up to about 1/3, it'll start filling, the halfway light will start coming on, then the rear gray tank starts filling up, and then it starts filling, and then our front tank shows about half, our rear tank is just showing empty, then when it gets up to about 1/3, that's about the halfway point on our front gray tank, and then they continue just to slowly build up together. So we can't get a full capacity of 2 gray tanks out of this method, but it certainly increases our capacity and helps us not have to drain quite so often. Okay, hopefully this view is good so you can see what's going on here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going over to this side, and I have the 2 gray tanks open on the inside, or in the main service compartment, and everything is built up back here just on this side of the line. So when I open this, what we should see is water start to come through this port here and then make its way out and down the line. So let's see how she does. There you can see the water is starting to rush out. Try to get a little bit better view. It's a little foggy in there, but the water is rushing out and you can see it is going down the line. You can kind of see that line vibrating a bit. Okay, so now you're at the receiving end and you can see that the water is coming out of the line and it's going through the Camco. So now we've adapted that. Runs through, you can see there's no leaks whatsoever. The water runs right out, goes right into here, and it works absolutely perfectly. So you can see it's filling up. We're getting a lot of good water run. You're able to see that it's clear. This is a gray tank only, no black tank in this. But it works exactly the same way as if we had a black tank. So generally what we would do is we would close our gray tanks off, allow them to fill up. Then we would open up the black tank, let it drain. That will get, crud in the line. And then when the black tank is empty, then we would open up the gray tanks, and that helps push the debris out. When we're in a park and we're on full-time connections like we are here, we just leave the gray tanks open all the time until we're getting close to where we need to dump the black tanks. Now that we've walked through how the system works, let me walk you through the steps of installing it. Unfortunately, I had to get this done fairly quickly because we're in an RV park, so I didn't have time to set up the camera and walk things through, but I did take some pretty detailed pictures. So I'm going to go inside to the computer and I'll walk you through step by step of exactly how we installed this system. Okay, the first step in the process is just taking a look at exactly what we had. So this is the OEM connection to the drain line. So you can see that it has the lugs on the front, and then from those lugs they go back into the main line. First step of the process was removing the OEM bracket that had just one bolt going across the bottom, and then it was screwed into the frame at the top. You just take those pieces off and set them aside, because I use the exact same bracket when we install the final assembly. The scary part starts when you get your saw out. So this is a PVC saw blade, and you can see the way that it's shaped. It's designed to cut through the PVC pipe. So the easiest way to do that is to just line it up against a solid edge that will help guide it so you get a nice straight cut. So in this case, I just lined it up next to the 90-degree elbow that was there, and I was able to just cut straight through. This is a picture of what the elbow looked like after I cut it, and you can see it was pretty straightforward and through. And then this picture here is one of the line after it was cut. You can see the debris around the outside. So then after getting it cut, I cleaned up the end connection to make it as clean as possible so it was ready for glue. I first dry fitted the Valterra valve onto the main line just to make sure that it fit. On the left side of this fitting, you can see this is what they call the hub side. And the hub side is designed to fit on a 3-inch PVC on the outside. The other side I'll show you in a second is what they call the spigot, and the spigot is what fits on the inside of a 3-inch valve. Connecting PVC pipe is pretty simple. They basically fuse together through heat. And the first step of the process is putting primer on. So this purple looking stuff is PVC primer. You put that on, kind of let it dry up a little bit, and then you apply cement. And you do that to both pieces. You do that on the inside of the Valterra valve, and you do it on the outside of the PVC valve. And then after the primer dries up a little bit, you put the PVC cement on, and then slide those pieces together. And you got to put the pieces together really fast, because as soon as those pieces connect, you've only got a few seconds before they make a permanent bond. So you want to make sure that you have everything lined up exactly where you want it. Just like the hub side, on the other side, you do the primer and the cement on the inside. On the other side of the Valterra valve, which is what they call the spigot, you put the primer and the cement on the outside. So that is what goes on the inside of the 90-degree fitting. So this is a photo of the 90-degree fitting that slid up on the valve. Now we have this pointed down just slightly, so instead of it being level with the ground and the Valterra valve, we want water that gets in it to drain towards the exit. So we have this 90-degree angle down just slightly so it points down towards the ground so the water would collect on the end. So this is what it looks like after it's glued together, and we pulled the Valterra valve out. The one thing you have to be careful about is that all this stuff is PVC, so it'd be very easy to accidentally get glue or primer on the valve that slides in and out together, and that would not be good because you wouldn't be able to drain any water. So we made sure that the valve was out and in and didn't accidentally get glued together. To keep things moving on this video, everything goes back together exactly the same way. So the PVC pipe in the center, you cut it to length. So you use a straight edge and you cut the PVC pipe, and then you slide it into the 90-degree and dry fit it in to make sure that the length is okay. If everything looks good, then you put the primer and the cement in just the same, and assembling one piece at a time. You want to make sure that you go piece by piece so everything is securely connected. This picture here is showing the bracket reassembled. So we used the OEM bracket that we took off at the first part of the process, screwed it into the frame, and then connected it around the clear PVC pipe versus the black PVC pipe that it was connected to previously. One of the things we tried to do is mount everything back in very close to the same location so we could use the same bracket without having to drill more holes up into the frame. Okay, now we've moved to the back of the rig and we're starting the process on this end. It's very similar to the front where we have to take things off, but you can notice off to the right it's pretty close to that jack stand. So we have to be very precise in how we put this system together so it doesn't hit the jack stand itself. I cut through the line, but this time I left the bracket on to give an idea of what things look like, and I'm pushing it apart. You can see that I cut straight down along the edge of the 90-degree elbow. Now what I found after doing that and dry fitting the Valterra valve, that it was a little bit too close to the jack stand. So what I had to do was to cut a little bit more off of that pipe so I'd make sure that I wasn't going to hit the jack stand. Now to do that, since I didn't have a straight edge, the trick to this is putting something that you can follow. So in this case what I did was put a 3-inch hose clamp around the outside edge. I think it actually was a 3.5-inch hose clamp. And I moved it in about a 1/2 inch or so. And then I run the saw right down the edge of that ring. That gives me something to follow, and it's something to make sure that I get a perfectly straight cut. These connections have to fit perfectly inside of each other or you could develop a leak, and this little band makes it very easy to get a nice straight cut. Like on the front, I cleaned up the cut end and made sure that it was ready for primer and cement. Then I moved to creating the PVC plastic pipe. So I had to create a custom length. I did exactly the same thing where I used a 3.5-inch hose clamp, put it on one end, cut it, then measured exactly what I needed and dry fitted things together. Then I cut it to length, put the primer on, then the cement on, fit everything back together. And this photo you can see I have a little hammer there, and what I do is I tap all of these fittings together to make sure that they're fully seated. So I got the bayonet fitting connected in and made sure that everything looked okay. Then I also opened up the bayonet connector on the right side, wanted to make sure that it was not hitting my landing gear. That would not be good if the leveler was hit. If it was, I would have to take everything apart. And then this is the final photo of the system after everything is put together. And like on the front, you can see that it's slightly angled down. So the water will drain out the end, and I reassembled the OEM bracket. Well, this concludes the installation video of the LCI Waste Master system in our 2020 Grand Design 397TH Momentum toy hauler. We hope you found this content useful. If you did, we'd really appreciate you clicking a like button below. If you want to get notified as we add more content to this channel, you can also click the bell icon, and that will notify you when we post new videos. We also appreciate any comments you have. So if you have questions about our installation, why we did something the way we did it, or how we did it, just go ahead and post a comment below. We'll do our very best to respond to those as quickly as we can. So until next time, I'm Jim Kerr, and thank you for visiting Passion Highway.